Is the Calgary real estate market going to crash? What's up, guys? My name is Riley Nichols, founder of the Bricks Real Estate Group. And in today's video, I want to give you guys a full market update. We want to talk about some of the migration numbers that are happening interprovincially in Alberta. We want to talk about interest rates and what is going to happen with the Bank of Canada with their upcoming rate announcement in September. And then we also want to go through some of the market stats for Calgary and look at the inventory, the supply and demand. Are we trending in a buyer's market or a seller's market? We're going to cover all of that in today's video, so stay tuned until the end and let's jump into it. So the first thing that we're going to cover today is the actual market stats that were just released from the Calgary Real Estate Board, and these are going to be the statistics for the month of August. So I'm going to jump up on my screen here. You guys can kind of follow along with me as we go through. So the first thing that's noteworthy is the sales. So in the month of August, we had 1,989 sales, and that is going to be across all product types. When I say all product types, that means detached properties, semi-detached properties, row housing, and apartments. And if we look here, the year-to-date sales are actually down 16%. Now that's pretty significant. One might look and say, hey, it's only 16%, but that is pretty significant from a year-over-year trend when we were in a pretty crazy seller's market for the last couple of years. The second thing that we want to look at is the new listings. So year-to-date, we have about 12.8% increase in new listings for the month of August. Again, we're trending into a buyer's market. That means more homes are coming on the market. There's more competition out there. When you were a buyer a couple years ago, there might have only been one option, and now there could be 3 properties that are identical for what you're looking for. The next thing that's very important to look at is the actual inventory. So inventory year over year is up 48.2%. Now again, that means there are more properties on the market today. So there is more competition amongst sellers. When there's more competition amongst sellers, those that need to sell are going to adjust their price. When they adjust their price and they sell, that is going to set a new benchmark in that neighborhood, and all of the other listings that fall in that category are going to need to follow that property. Now, when that happens and we have increased supply and reduced demand, naturally the prices are going to start to regress and trend downwards. So as of today, we are currently in a downward trending market, mainly due to supply and demand. There are a lot of houses on the market, but there are not as many buyers that are snapping these up, and that is causing pricing to regress in most of our market sectors. The other thing that we want to look at is months of supply. We have 3.35 months of supply, which means that we are now trending towards a buyer's market. We were in a very heavy seller's market for probably about a year and a half, and we moved into a balanced market, and now we're trending into a buyer's market. If you guys look on the graph here, the months of supply is up 62.6%. That is significant. That is a lot more properties on the market. That is a very drastic change in a relatively short period of time, and that is why we're seeing a lot of negotiation out there. A lot of buyers trying to get stuff at a reduced price. Even if a home is priced fairly, we're still seeing buyers trying to get really aggressive because they know that there are other properties coming and they have the opportunity to get a good deal out there. Now, if we look at some of the pricing overall, so our total residential price is down about 4.1%. Now, I have a lot of clients that are asking me, Riley, is the market bad? Is it a bad time to sell? What's going on? The reality of it is we had a significant price jump for a couple years where we saw almost a 20 to 30% increase in real estate over a 2 to 2.5 year period. Now, yes, the market is regressing. We're moving into a buyer's market, and we're clawing back some of those gains that we were able to gain for that last couple of years. So is the market crashing? No, not necessarily. Is the market taking back some of those gains that we saw that were so significant in a short period of time? The answer is yes. So yeah, your property is still up 15, 20%. It might not be up 25 or 30%, but you've still seen significant equity gains in a very short period of time if you've been holding a piece of real estate in the last 3 to 4 years. Now, our detached price is down just under 1%, so again, slight regression downward. Our semi-detached is up 1%, so ever so slightly. And again, when our detached price becomes higher, we see buyers start to move into different market sectors and different product types. Our row price is down 4.8%, but again, we saw close to a 30% increase in row pricing. So it's natural that the market is going to want to regress and take back some of those gains because there was such a big lift. And our apartment price is down 5.8%. I'm sad for our apartments in Calgary. We finally recovered from our 2014, 2015 levels, and we got some of those gains back, and we had a lot of clients that ended up offloading their rental properties in the apartment sector. And now again, we're just regressing and taking back some of those gains. So overall, what is going on in the market? We have more supply. That means there's more competition. There are more sellers out there. Buyers are trying to get deals on everything that they can. We're seeing a bit of regression on some of those product types that saw significant gains. So again, the market's not crashing, but your property value has probably gone down a little bit, and that's natural because there's a lot of inventory on the market. If you are a seller in this market and you want to sell, you need to make sure your house is staged, it's professionally cleaned, it shows well, it's priced appropriately. And one of the key things right now with pricing is if we're in a downward trending market, we need to make sure that we are pricing ahead of the market. Because if we list at a price of $500K and the property sits on the market for 3 months and the market is inching down 1% per month, that means by month 3, we're already worth $15,000 less than we started. So we don't want to price too low where we're going to leave equity on the table, but we also need to be pricing appropriately and pricing ahead of the market. And I can't stress this enough how important it is for our seller clients. Presentation is key and pricing ahead of the market. Number 2, the next thing I want to talk about is migration in Alberta. What is happening with interprovincial migration and what is happening with migration in general? Now, for any of you that live in Calgary or Alberta and have been here for a number of years, we saw a massive surge of interprovincial migration from BC and from Ontario. And let me explain why that happened. We had markets that were very high in the Lower Mainland in BC and GTA in the Toronto and Ontario area. Now, we had sellers that were sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity, and they wanted to move to Alberta. There was tons of marketing in BC and in Ontario. Come to Alberta, move to Alberta. And what these sellers ended up doing was they cashed out on their primary residence. Say they sold their house for $1 million. They were able to buy almost that same property that they sold for about $500,000 or $600,000 in Alberta. And they were left with a significant chunk of equity and a good lifestyle change that they were looking for their family. Now, that has changed because prices in Alberta have increased. They've gone up about 20% since then. The markets in BC and Ontario have also regressed. So that large equity position that those people had before, that's not the case anymore. They might still have some equity, but it's not as lucrative for them to cash out on their primary residence in Ontario or BC in a downward trending market and then buy in Alberta when our prices have gone up also. Now, don't get it twisted. It is still happening, but not with the same amount of surge and demand that it was between 2022 and maybe halfway through 2023. So here's some migration numbers for you. In the first quarter of 2025, Alberta experienced a net interprovincial gain of 7,176 people and a net international migration of 10,268 people, resulting in total net migration of about 17,000. The province saw its largest annual population growth on record in 2023. So that is when people were moving here from Ontario and BC, with a total increase of 202,000 residents. Now, when you have 200,000 people coming to Alberta, and it's a great place to live, and our real estate market was, just kind of chugging along, doing its thing. Boom, we had a ton of demand, we had low supply, and that forced our prices to increase. That is the basis of why our real estate market went up in value. We had 200,000 new people coming here. So that all makes sense. Now, however, the number of non-permanent residents increased significantly in 2023 and early 2024, but saw a decrease in the first quarter of 2025. So again, our migration has slowed down, which means naturally we have more properties coming on the market. We don't have as much interprovincial migration to snap up some of these properties, which is inflating our supply in the real estate market. So that's one thing that we want to focus on and something that we want to be aware of. Now, last on the list, we want to talk about interest rates, the Bank of Canada, and what is happening with the interest rate market. Now, as of today, the current overnight interest rate is 2.75%. On April 16th, 2025, the Bank of Canada held their overnight rate at 2.75. The next announcement was June 4th. Again, they held that overnight rate at 2.75. July 30th, again, they held the overnight rate at 2.75, and the next rate announcement from the Bank of Canada is on September 17th, 2025. As of me shooting this video, it is September 8th, so there is going to be about 9 days we're going to be getting that interest rate announcement, and it's likely that they're probably going to adjust and lower that interest rate. Now, the Fed in the US is also planning on lowering their interest rates, and that's speculative, but it looks like that is likely going to happen. And typically, Canada and the US kind of are part and parcel as far as interest rates and how that works. So my anticipation is the Bank of Canada is likely going to drop their overnight rate, drop their interest rate another 250 basis points. So that is going to decrease the rate and reduce payments for people and make it a little bit easier to get mortgages. Now, some people are saying that, oh, if the rate comes down, our real estate market's going to go crazy. Frankly, I disagree. We have so much inventory right now. A quarter-point rate adjustment is not going to be enough to gobble up all of the supply that is on our market today right now. And again, we are seeing price decreases across the board. We are seeing terminated listings, expired listings, and just because it's a little bit easier to get a mortgage and your payments are slightly less, I do not think that a quarter-point adjustment is going to be enough to gobble up all of the supply that we currently have. Will it make things a little bit easier? Sure. Is it going to maybe bring a few more buyers into the marketplace to kind of combat some of this supply? Sure, it probably will. However, I do not think that a rate announcement that is relatively low, it's not like they're going down 500 basis points, half a point. It could be a quarter point. I do not think that that's going to be enough to create this big catalyst in our market where we see prices going back up. There is just too much supply. And the basic economics of real estate is supply and demand. When you have a ton of supply and low demand, well, naturally, prices are going to start to regress. So I hope you got a ton of value from this video. This was your September market update for the month of August. I hope everybody had a fantastic summer. If you guys have any questions about the real estate market, drop it down in the comments below or send us a message. All of our contact information is in the description. Again, this is Riley Nichols with the Bricks Real Estate Group, and we'll see you on the next one.